the frenzy, everybody. An asshole gets fired in Baton Rouge, and that is the bat signal for me and Coach to get out here, talk some football, talk some sports. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is a beautiful, blessed Wednesday night. I am the Iceman, Matt Freites, and as always, that is the Coach, Brad Powell. Brad, it's been a couple weeks. How you doing?
Iceman, doing well, my friend. I expect a huge turnout tonight with no Thursday night football to compete against. As we
Obviously.
can see, we're off to a hot start.
Yes.
But no, there's been a lot of buzz and firings and potential hirings going on in the college football ranks, which make things super interesting, in my opinion. And we are also on the verge of the first college football playoff rankings coming out next week. Things
Yes.
are very busy. A lot of this things are very busy in my personal life. Like my son has started wrestling, which is like this total surreal thing for me, but awesome all at the same time. So that's been fun. I'll make sure I share updates as that progresses. He always thinks he's the best at it. He's been to 2 practices. So he's just like, I beat everybody. This is easy, he says. But he's just he's very aggressive very physical and very aggressive for a 5-year-old. And so truthfully, like the other kids around his size, just they're not real interested in like wrestling him because he just kind of like runs him over. And so that's going to be weird because it's like, okay, like he needs people to practice with, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like at what point it becomes where he's got to get someone that's bigger, older, whatever. And that's not good for that kid either because that kid's just going to destroy him, which he doesn't care. He just gets up and goes, let's go again. But like, it doesn't help that kid. So we'll see how that goes. But all in all, man, happy to be here. Happy to talk a little college football.
How do you feel about kids having to experience losing early in their sports journey? Because I know, or we know a few parents for whom their kid is naturally gifted and they haven't really tasted being bad at anything or losing at anything. And I've noticed that the attitude of this child seems to be growing and growing in terms of ego, where it's like Carver. Carver's 5, so he doesn't understand anything about competitive sports whatsoever. But if you never experience adversity in any way, I feel like there is a lack of humility that comes with that. I don't know how you experience it from a coaching perspective, but we kind of debate this in the house a lot as to whether it's like, is it great that you're great at everything, or should you experience being bad at something just so that you understand that, hey, this is not easy?
Man, like obviously I have no experience in this from a athlete perspective because I was never great, like naturally great
Sure.
at anything. I think that as a coach, I have a ton of experience with seeing kids on both ends of the spectrum where you have the kid that's very naturally gifted, but also not, they've always just, as a kid in youth sports, had success, like you're talking about. And so they never learn how to work hard for their success.
Yes.
And when it comes the time where like that matters, so let's just say like high school football. So like you get into high school, like now like everybody's fast. Now the difference is the things like getting in the weight room, getting stronger, stuff like that. Like you're not just gonna outrun everybody now. Like, and I've seen lesser talented kids that work hard bypass those guys all the time. And usually the byproduct of that is a terrible attitude, which turns into this kind of poison that permeate. I mean, it's a bad deal, man. Like it can be especially if you have a team made up of people who aren't super naturally gifted and talented, it can become a really toxic environment because that kid looks around and he's like, I'm better than all these kids, but like all those other kids are working much harder than he is. It's just a weird dynamic, man. And I've been a part of it way too many times. What's the solution? I don't know because like I think it's good. I think it's good to present kids with adversity at a young age and let them sort of navigate that on their own. Um, but sometimes it's hard if you have a kid that's just more aggressive, more physical, more naturally gifted, talent wise. How do you put them in that situation without it going like way to the opposite side of things, right? Um, I think as a parent or as a coach, we always kind of hope for that balance of like success, but like adversity, so that like you get to experience success, but enough adversity that you're humbled and you learn how to work hard to improve, so you can feel that success again, that and just that nice balance is perfect at a young age. But I mean, how to like engineer that and achieve it as a parent or coach, no idea. But like I think it's necessary, but how to like a parent has to want that, I guess. Some parents love just seeing their kid be the best at everything because their identity is way too connected to that in some ways.
Very
But
true. Very true.
seriously, but a lot of it's some of it's parenting, some of it's the community you live in, and the types of kids and athletes your child's around. What opportunities are available, but it's a tricky deal, man. I don't have an answer, a good one, anyways.
Well, no, it's just listening to you talk about Carver being like, this is easy. And as a parent, even if something comes easy, you want to express that you still should work at it. Cause I feel
Oh, it
like
drives
these
me nuts.
kids,
I hate it. I hate when
yeah,
it does that.
but these kids are going to run into somebody or something that is going to be adversity. And no matter where you go, you're going to find somebody who's better at something than you. You're going to find a situation. I mean, even if these kids end up going pro, you're not going to skate by on just pure talent alone. And we're not going back for the comments right there because you show up late to the feed. I don't know what to do for you. But anyway, it's just something that I thought about when you said like, "Oh, I'm good at this," and I'm like, "Man, I feel like I've talked about this before." But let's not derail this by talking about kids because fuck them kids and all that. But let's talk about Brian Kelly because 2 weeks ago you and I sat here and talked about James Franklin getting let go from Penn State. And at that point in time, coaches had been let go, but we hadn't really seen, I think, the full breadth of what we were looking at. And now, fast forward 2 weeks later, Billy Napier's gone at Florida, which we've been talking about since literally the first show of the year. And now Brian Kelly is gone at LSU. And this is just an insane year for coaches. But you and I talked about this a little bit offline. But I first want to get your reaction to Brian Kelly getting fired mid-season at LSU, given the fact that I think we can both agree that he's a stellar asshole, but a really good football coach.
Yeah, really good football coach. Stellar asshole for sure. I mean, the guy's won like 70% of his games at LSU. So it's like when you just look on paper, I think some people would be like, this is crazy, right? But you have to apply some context to the situation, and that is that it's LSU. Their previous three head coaches have won national championships, and one of which being Ed Orgeron, who's like a caveman. And
In year
you,
four, and this is
right,
where
and
it's
you're,
like what you talk about with Marcus Freeman, where
yeah,
he needed to do something
Notre
in year
Dame, it's
three
like year
because,
three is the
right.
money year, yeah. And it the issue with Brian Kelly is this: he's been a bad fit from day one. I mean, it's
Yes.
very obvious. Okay, um, you cannot be an asshole that's unlikable and mediocre. And I say mediocre in the context of LSU because the results that he's, at least so far this year have been mediocre. And when you have the type of personality that he has and you are as bad of a fit as he was at LSU, you're not going to get any grace, man. Like there's going to be people down there that are going to wait for that, just that first chink in the armor, and the second they see it, you're done. And that's what's happened here. Um, if Brian Kelly was, I mean, hell, they fired Ed Orgeron and let him finish the season
Yes,
because
they
I
did.
mean, Coach O is he's a likable guy. You know what I mean? Like, I
I'd
mean,
say maybe
that's the
too likable.
difference. Yeah, I mean, I just think that is that's the difference here is just his personality. I mean, and there's been a lot of players, former players, LSU alums that have come out, and we heard the same stuff at Notre Dame about how he really like alienated the alumni and didn't let them be around the program. And like Marcus Freeman has changed that. And then some of these guys like Manti Te'o has been back more since Marcus Freeman's been the head coach than he ever was when Brian Kelly was the head coach. Joe Montana's back around. Like there's a little tiny hole in the wall bar across the street from Notre Dame Stadium called the Linebacker Lounge. Like I saw a video, Joe Montana's in there pouring Guinnesses for people. I mean, it's just that these guys are back around. Well, LSU's experiencing that now, where he's shut out all these alums. And I got bad news for you. Like your big money donors at LSU are the pro athletes, and you cannot alienate those guys. Um, which he's done. And then there was another player who kind of was playing pretty well. He's like, Coach Kelly was contacting me, talking to me regularly, and then I got injured and was forced to medically retire, and I haven't heard from him since.
That
You
feels
know,
like a
so like
Brian Kelly thing.
he doesn't care about the player as a human being, unfortunately, unless you're doing something for him. Um, I just it's a bad situation, man. Like the guy can coach football. I'm not denying that, but it was a bad fit, and you can't be an asshole and mediocre at the same time. Nick Saban's not the most like wasn't the most likable guy as a coach. He was pretty abrasive, but you know what he did is he won a lot.
But I
He
think
won
he actually cared
championships.
about the players, though. Like,
Yeah,
I do think there was more caring about the players from Nick Saban. And you hear stories now that he's gone because the allure is off. They're not beholden to him as the head coach. And now you hear players talk about he did actually care about those players in a way that I don't think they made public because
yeah.
that's
There's
just
not
not
a
how it is.
reputation to protect anymore.
Right. So I want to read this comment that I got on a reel, ironically, that I did before the Texas A&M game. This was before the firing, but I had called his stint there somewhat disappointing because I also want to say too, Brian Kelly won 10 games twice in 9 games. And I will tell you this, Virginia Tech will take that in a heartbeat, but that's Virginia Tech standards, not LSU standards. But this commenter kind of laughed at my calling it somewhat disappointing. And they said, winning seasons don't matter at LSU when they are winning in spite of themselves, not because of great play. LSU fans will accept losses. We will not accept 4 years of watching Pee Wee football. That was a little harsh, but at the same time, I get what they're saying. It's not about losing. But for Ryan Kelly and James Franklin are very similar. It's which games you lose, how you lose those games. And it felt like all of a sudden now the team and the program was kind of going downhill. And the vibes, and I talked about this with James Franklin too, the vibes were on Brian Kelly because you said that James Franklin wasn't that likable of a guy. Well, Brian Kelly might be the most unlikable guy in all of college football. So if it's not fun and the coach is a dick, well, guess what? That's not going to work in today's college football. And I don't care. LSU said, we're finding the money. And there's so many layers to this, Brad, because it's not just about LSU football. This is a domino effect now that seems to be sort of propagating this crack that's propagating through all of college football this year to where we have 12 jobs open and we're not
Well,
even out of the month of October yet.
it's if you are, which I mean, Indiana's already extended Signetti, but if you're Indiana, if you're Notre Dame, if you're Oregon, if you're some of these Power 4 schools that have a really good head coach, that's and I'm not even saying like these are schools, Indiana not so much, but like Oregon, top tier program, Notre Dame, top tier program, but like you're gonna have to extend these guys. Like I will not be. I'm telling you right now, or goodness gracious, Marcus Freeman got an extension last year, right before the playoffs started. I will not be surprised if he gets another one um, before
Lock them
the end
up.
of the season. Like I'm serious. Like and Notre Dame's gonna have to do it because Penn State's called him, Florida's called him, LSU will probably call him. And Dan Lanning's in the same situation in Oregon. I guarantee you he is. And LSU's a job. We talked about this, before. Like there's a few jobs that no matter what job you have, when they call, you're gonna pick up the phone. And LSU is one of those jobs. And because of their recruiting base, they're the biggest show in town. Like there's no other power conference schools in their state. I mean, there's tons of support. When LSU calls, you answer, and you're gonna have to pay to keep these guys, no matter even if they don't want to go. Like you're still gonna. I mean, Marcus Freeman may have zero interest. He probably, hopefully, has zero interest in going to LSU, but you're still gonna have to pay him. You know what I
He
mean?
wouldn't
And
be a
same
good
with,
fit there, though. Like,
I don't think so. I mean,
I
but
think fit matters with
Brian
these
Kelly
coaches a
wasn't
lot.
either. Like
He wasn't, but Marcus Freeman still has a light resume. I know he went to a national championship game, so I'm not taking anything away from Marcus Freeman, but Brian Kelly had won at Cincinnati, many years at Notre Dame, and I think that we need to give credit where credit is due. Winning is hard at Notre Dame because there are standards, there are more specifically academic standards that are different than almost every other school in the country at that level. I mean, there are a lot of smart schools, but they're not schools that we predominantly think of in the upper
like
echelon of college
Duke,
football.
Stanford. I
Duke,
mean,
Stanford, yes, Vanderbilt,
those,
right?
yeah,
These are schools that
yeah.
have impeccable academic records, but we don't think of them as powerhouse on the football field. Whereas Notre Dame does both. We think of them historically as one of the top tier college football programs out there. So Marcus Freeman only has this is his fourth year. I, it would be difficult for me to think that he would feel ready to go. Whereas Brian Kelly, not a good fit anywhere just because of who he is, but also big track record heading into that. So I kind of got that higher. But do you remember when that happened? I think we were doing the show, and I think or maybe we weren't, but I thought that doesn't feel to me like a good idea. And it felt like it was a bad fit from the very beginning, faking Southern accents. No, I think it was you that said it to me. No assistant coaches went with him to LSU. To me, that's a giant red flag.
Yeah. I mean, nobody followed him, and, I mean, you heard, I think, the story's been out there in the media now when he was at Central Michigan, Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh were maybe GAs, or possibly low-level assistants, and they got, an invitation to a party at his house. Well, they thought it was an invitation to participate in a party at his house, but no, they were brought there to park cars, um, for the guests at Brian Kelly's party. And they there's the story goes that they shared an apartment, they were roommates, and they went back to their apartment that night, and they just said, we're never going to be that type of coach that treats people this way.
No.
And I mean, I think I've seen the clips from Saturday where like he's just like lighting people up on the sideline and like telling them they're going to get fired and everything else. I mean,
Do you think he knew heading into that game that his seat was hot? Like, do you think the
oh,
administration had
probably.
talked to him prior to?
I would think so. Hell, it sounds like the governor got involved,
Which is
which I mean, I
interesting.
is
That's where we are now.
crazy, right? Which I think the governor came out and said that the AD is not gonna be in charge of hiring the next head coach, which
Correct.
again,
Yes, correct.
crazy.
The governor seems like he or she, I don't even know. Apologies to them, is going to pick the next head coach. But okay, so let's dive into a couple of things here. So, like I said, there are 12 jobs open now, and I think a couple factors are at play here. First thing, I saw Mike today, and a big shout out to him for stepping up last week. Put that NFL episode out, got really good numbers. Though we kind of broke everything down. You and I haven't talked much about the NFL because we're much more interested in the college game. So it was nice to kind of fill that void. So shout out to him. But he did talk about Brian Kelly and that, and he kind of likened it to management in general. How if management, which I would say leadership is Brian Kelly, if leadership does not treat their players or their workers like they matter, eventually the results are not going to be there because you don't feel emotionally tied to this person who makes it very, very clear that you are just another cog in the wheel and you're not really important to them. And I think you said it earlier. And if that's true, and you're a player that goes there, first of all, I don't know how you decide to go there when you know who he is, but once you're there, you get treated even less like you're hoping to. And in the NIL era, that just does not fly. The transfer portal era, that just does not fly. And you have to be good in order to be okay with him. And I just feel like that's a recipe for disaster. And do you think that that's part of what happened, that he lost the team over time because he just never really had an emotional connection with any of the players?
No, and I think that's 100% the case, and Mike's dead on when he says that. I've said this for a long time as a coach, even a youth coach, and maybe more importantly, as a youth coach to some degree. I think a player, regardless of their age, they have to trust you before they're gonna let you coach them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've always believed that, like, they have to trust you, and or you could take it one step further, like, they have to know that you love them before they let you coach them. And, and I don't think I've never gotten the impression from Brian Kelly that, like, players feel that way about him. Um, he loves the player, not the person, and that's a problem because, like, that's a mistake. I know it's a business, especially these days, but, like, coaching and it's a people business, man. And it's about, it's no different than being in management, like you mentioned, in a company, like Mike said, you are responsible for taking care of the people in your charge, right? Like
Yeah.
the people, the human beings, right? Like, and, my stance as a coach has always been, no matter what program I've been a part of, is if your kid leaves here a better person, then I've done my job. Like the other stuff is great, and I get that's more of a youth sports thing or even high school sports thing. But it's like, I want to teach them how to be respectful, play the game the right way. work hard, like, just those high character traits. And I don't think that, like, that's something gets lost at times at the college level by people like Brian Kelly. But I think it still matters. And I think that, like, I'm always on here talking about Marcus Freeman, but I think he embodies that. He talks about, he encourages his coaches, like, bring your families around, bring them to the building. Like, he wants the players to see them being fathers and husbands, and and all that stuff. He wants the families around. Like, I saw a picture today, like, all the families brought their kids in. They do like this big trick or treating thing, or whatever. I mean, like, it's a family affair. And Brian Kelly's just never, I guess, his family or
I
whatever
was
he
waiting for
said.
you to say that. I was waiting for you to say that. You can't fake Southern accents. And also, it's not even a Louisiana accent. It's just a standard issue Southern accent. So get that right. But let's go back to 2022 when Brian Kelly was hired. I think it was 2022 was his first season. And that off season, three big hires came to mind. First one was Brian Kelly to LSU, Lincoln Riley to USC, and now historically what will be seen as the best hire, Marcus Freeman to Notre Dame. And it's funny thinking about that because remember, that was a hire where people thought, this guy doesn't have any real experience. I know he's a player guy. Like, is he fit the Notre Dame culture? And now when you look at the results, and even this year with the Irish kind of surging right now, Marcus Freeman was the home run hire that nobody saw coming. And you kind of thought, oh, Brian Kelly can win at LSU. Lincoln Riley for sure can win at USC because those are two schools that are rich. They have lots of resources, and neither one of those guys is getting it done. LSU is going to find the money to pay Brian Kelly's buyout for sure. Lincoln Riley's a fascinating one because I think I told you his buyout is like, I don't know, jokingly, it's like $90 million. Like, it's huge, absolutely huge. And that's a school that has a ton of donors. Obviously, they can make that happen. But it's very clear to me, Brad, that nobody is safe anymore. And it doesn't matter the buyout number. If they want to fire you, they will fire you and they will find the money to pay.
100%. And another difference between Marcus Freeman and those guys is Marcus Freeman let Notre Dame change him, and Notre Dame let Marcus Freeman change them a little bit. And that's why that's worked. Um, is because neither side was too proud to, like, say that we're not interested in adapting, and both sides have, I think, and that's why it's worked so successfully. And I think that's why you'll see Marcus Freeman hesitate to leave at any point in time. I think there's one job that he'd have a hard time saying no to, and that's Ohio State, if and when that job comes open someday. Just being an Ohio State alum and arguably maybe the best job in the country.
I was going to say that's an upgrade, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
that's no
mean,
shade to Notre Dame. That's an upgrade, though.
yeah, I mean, it's one of few programs that I think you could objectively say is an upgrade. Um, so no, I mean, you're right. These fits. I mean, I thought Lincoln Riley to USC was going to be a great fit. Truthfully, hasn't panned out that way.
I don't think
Um,
so. Very
no, I mean,
disappointing.
and you just don't get the time in the Kirk Signetti has absolutely ruined
Yes,
getting like any time to build a program. Like, it's a moot point. Like, you might get 2 years, like, if you're lucky. Like, you better show progress. I mean, like, Bill Belichick, if his name, I mean, he may get fired even after this year, but if his name wasn't Bill Belichick, he'd probably be fired already.
I had somebody
At
tell me that he
UNC.
wasn't getting fired. They're giving him another year. They'll fire him if they can. If they can afford it, they will fire Bill Belichick 100% because they need a coach who can get in there and win. But you mentioned year two, Brad. Even in the transfer portal era and the NIL era, isn't it fair to say that it's almost impossible to turn a team around in just 1 year? I mean, I know like Texas Tech has sort of done that, but the Big 12 is a completely different landscape. But at these larger schools where the expectations are high, it seems to me that like expecting a guy to come in there and be national championship ready. I mean, Brian Kelly took over a roster that was decimated after the 2019 national championship with Joe Burrow and all those guys. And then Orgeron left and he won 10 games. To me, that's a testament to his coaching. And that's, I don't think a lot of guys can do that.
No, I would agree. Again, I've never disputed the man's talent as a coach. But I think to get to that next level, you've got to achieve a level of buy-in, and we talk about culture here a lot. Like, there's nothing. I don't know if Brian Kelly has a culture at all. You know what I'm saying?
He's the
And
culture
I guess, but I mean, like, I don't think that he connects with the players at all.
in his mind, Brad. In
I
his
mean,
mind,
c-
he is a culture
they
himself.
they
Like, you
said
know what
he
I'm
went on
saying?
vacation during the bye week this year.
That's great.
Like, that's crazy. Like,
Probably looking for a new house.
I mean, what a
A dick.
self-absorbed person. Like, I mean, knowing that like you're struggling a little bit, you're like, fuck it, let's go on vacation. Um, but
Oh
I
God.
mean, goodness gracious. I mean, and uh, I'm not hating on the man. Like, you know
Yes,
what?
you are.
He's the
Just do it.
winningest coach in Notre Dame history. You won a lot of games there, not very many big games, but that's besides the point. And I think I was even defending him right a couple weeks ago, or maybe I guess probably like a month ago now, when they were beating the media's beating them up after beating Florida,
We
not
did
by not enough.
actually
You
agree
know,
with his stance in that
yeah,
regard, and that aged poorly.
I don't know if it aged. I mean, I still agree with what he was saying. Like, I think it's
No, I mean the clip
absurd.
aged poorly for him. We're fine.
Yeah, we're great. Yeah, I mean,
We're totally
um,
fine.
but anyways, no, I mean, it's going to be interesting what happens. There's a lot of jobs open. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of really good coaches available. You know, Brian Kelly's available. James Franklin's available. We're not talking about Billy Napier. Billy Napier's still a good football coach. And there's going to be more jobs that are going to open. Auburn may
Oh,
very
for
well open up.
sure.
Florida
Auburn,
State may very well open up.
Wisconsin, Florida State. I feel bad for Mike Norvell because 2 years ago they were one game away from the playoff. Their quarterback gets hurt, and now he's probably going to get fired.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like his entire career is tied to one injury, and they
Correct.
never even lost the game because of it. But like,
Correct.
I
Yeah,
mean,
right,
wild.
exactly. It is why I was thinking about that earlier because again, listening to a lot of sports podcasts talking about the jobs that are coming open, but like Luke Fickle's gone. I mean, if they can figure out a way to afford that
I don't
buyout,
think
he's
they're gonna
probably
fire him.
gone.
I don't think they're gonna
The
fire him.
only reason they might not is because of the buyout, but like that's been a disaster. Like Wisconsin is nowhere near what they were. Remember, Luke Fickle at one point was thought to be for the Ohio State job, and
Well,
he
if
can't
it
even
wasn't
win at
for
Wisconsin.
Marcus, yeah, if it wasn't for Marcus Freeman, then there's a lot of people that wanted him for the Notre Dame job. I
He
mean,
might
a
have been
ton.
fine at Notre Dame, but like Wisconsin's a tough job because again, you're in the middle of a Big Ten that is stacked right now. And so you have to keep up. If any of these programs fall behind, man, it's tough. I mean, Penn State might find that out real quick. If they don't get the right coach, they may find themselves in the middle of the pack where Wisconsin is now. But you mentioned Auburn, Hugh Freeze probably gone. If he even if he wins the Iron Bowl, which would be insane, but that would probably keep him, right? If they were like 6-6 and he won the Iron Bowl, they might actually keep him, especially
They
if that
fire him
gets
before that game just so they're not
they,
faced with that decision.
that's a good idea. I'm here for it. We said Luke Fickle. I think Mike Norvell for sure, and I'm sure there are some other candidates out there who are going to be on the hot seat. I mean, Shane Beamer might
Coach
be one of
Prime.
those guys. Coach Prime might leave because of his health. Like I was watching him the other day, and it's obvious to me, and we haven't talked about Colorado at all because the hype is off of them. But Brad, I think he actually cares about coaching. I think he actually cares about coaching those kids. I just don't think they have the dudes, and it may not be as fun because he's not coaching his kids.
Yeah, and that's fair. Eh, Credit to him, I suppose, for I mean, not bailing after his kids left.
You said he
Um,
was going to. You kind
I
of were
wouldn't
on
have
that
been
train.
surprised, if he hightailed it out of there, but, like, I think he's, you know, keeping his word to the University of Colorado so far. And I imagine that there would probably be a conversation behind closed doors where they would let him leave gracefully on his own accord. Um, I doubt it would be a firing, but that's a job that you may see open up, and like, unfortunately, Colorado would probably just return to irrelevancy.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. What about Sark? Because that's a name I've heard a lot this week. There was rumors that he was kind of floating his name around for NFL head coaching jobs, and he got real pissed about that, which makes me think that it's actually true. But could you agree that the Texas job doesn't seem like it's a lot of fun right now?
well, no, because they're not looking very good right now. I mean, they've had a good last couple weeks, and there's still plenty of time for them to finish strong, but they got off to a rough start. And they were a team that everyone expected to be firmly in the hunt, to compete for a national championship. Now, I'm not saying that ship has sailed completely, but they're going to have to be pretty much perfect from here on out uh, to even put themselves into the playoff.
Good luck.
Um, right, exactly. And so is it I don't think it's a situation where Texas moves on from him because of a bad year, or a
No, I think he
down
would
year, we'll call
he
it.
seems like he
But
wants to leave.
I mean, and who knows? It's gotta be a hard job to have because of the expectations, but that's what all these big jobs are. I mean, like, gosh, look how up until last year, man, like, look at the hate Ryan Day was getting, not just from us, but from Ohio
I was
State
gonna
people.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And that'll come back. Like, if they lose to Michigan this year, that's coming back. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yes.
it is coming back, and everything comes back around. But let's go over some of these jobs, Brad. So as of right now, the jobs that are open, would you and I both agree that LSU is the best job available?
Yeah, by a mile.
And I think Florida's next.
Okay, so maybe not LSU by a mile. LSU, yes, 1, Florida 2, then big gap.
Big gap. But would you what the name that I've heard for both of these jobs early on, I think more for Florida than LSU is Lane Kiffin. And the reason that Florida I think would be very interested is because I heard this comp. Lane Kiffin is the spiritual successor to Steve Spurrier. Kind of a troll, wants to throw the ball a lot.
I have heard that. That's gonna be one of the most interesting things. Like, my goodness, Lane Kiffin has just gotta be like, "You've gotta be kidding me." Like, I just make a documentary talking about how happy I am being in Oxford, and my family's moved here, and my kids love it here, and now 2 of the better jobs in the country open up, and I am the favorite for both of them. And
Yes.
they're both that happen to be in the same conference that I'm already coaching in. So, because he's gonna face almost what he faced at, not as bad when he left Tennessee, but he will go from being the most beloved man in Oxford to the most hated man in Oxford overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most likely, like, maybe there's some part of the fan base that would be thankful for what he's done with the program, but I don't think that college football fans are that realistic and logical.
No. And Oxford is not a town that's seen a lot of winners. So this is very new for them. And I say new. This is very mostly uncharted territory for them in terms of consistent winning. And this team that he's got this year, buddy, I still think that it's the best team he had. Now they lost after I said that, but I still think that this is the best team he's ever had. And I know Jackson Dart was great, but man, Trinidad Chambliss is he's a dude. Like he
What a
is really
name.
good. It's great. And he's a dude though. Like he's out there Josh Allen it up and he's chucking it all over the place. But then you have Penn State. And I think Penn State is probably the number 3, but I think far and away from either of those 2 jobs. We could probably even put LSU, Florida almost like 1A, 1B. Like
Yeah.
they're both good jobs. They both have resources. I would say that LSU's expectations are probably a lot more unrealistic and lofty than Florida's. I think Florida hasn't been there
Well,
for a minute
LSU's
since
success is a little more recent, I think, is
yes,
just
right.
what it is.
20 years now almost basically between national championships for Florida. But if that program gets going, they have a huge stadium with Nike Jordan brand backing and a rabid fan base. They'll be right back, like right back. It's one of those types of jobs. Penn State though is a job that I think they can be right back. I think they have to nail this higher. I don't think LSU and Florida are as I don't think that there isn't as much pressure more for LSU to like nail this higher because I think LSU should be at least 8 wins just because they're LSU type of a thing. Florida obviously is not the same thing, but like if Penn State gets this wrong, the floor drops out and we need the, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it feels
Yeah,
like Matt Rule might be that guy, but you did send me the thing that was like, you got to call Kalen DeBoer. Why the hell would he leave Alabama to
dude,
go to Penn
I
State?
saw that,
Good
like,
Lord.
I mean, and I get it, like,
Yeah,
we
make the
love our
call,
teams.
sure.
We love our teams, and all of us as fans have a much more inflated opinion of our program than is probably reality. But yeah, when there was that little podcast or whatever it was. They should make podcasting equipment more expensive, right?
That's right.
Whenever there
I
was
think
that
that
little
was an actual
podcast,
journalist who said that, by the way.
right? Uh, I've seen that comment on so many different videos, and I saw it on one recently where I was like, I agree, these people know what they're talking about. It wasn't us though.
Should be. I mean, it's
Anyhow,
applicable.
the these Penn State fans, yeah, saying like you got to pick up the phone and call Kalen DeBoer. Like, you're no, like why? I mean, that's I don't know. Like it just seems you might as well call Andy Reid while you're at it. Like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why would you like? I don't see what universe you would ever leave Alabama right now to go to Penn State. Like it
Now,
just at
absolutely
all.
not. Like Alabama is I think Alabama and Texas are probably the two most difficult jobs because I think that the expectations of both of those schools are so lofty for different reasons. I was listening to Pat Forty the other day talk about when Saban first got hired. I think it was year 3. So remember they went like 6-6 his first year, wasn't great. Went to the SEC championship game his second year. By the third year, they were undefeated late in the season, and I guess they were playing Tennessee. They won because they blocked a kick at the end of the game. 90% of the stadium's euphoric, and Pat Forty got basically grabbed by this one dude who said, "This Saban guy ain't gonna make it if we're almost losing to Tennessee," and that's just Alabama football right there.
Dude, but it's not. I mean, honestly, though, there's people like that in every fan base, man, in college sports, especially.
Yeah.
Um, there's people like there's Bradley fans that are that way about things. That are very passionate. We'll call it. But no, you're right, man. I mean, Alabama and Texas, those two jobs, they're jobs that are that are really really hard when you're not doing well, but are freaking great, man, when you're winning.
Oh, for sure.
And I
When
mean,
things are
yeah,
rolling
most
at
jobs are,
Alabama,
but yeah, you are a god.
well, so looking at the rest of the jobs, I think Arkansas is a good job in terms of the fact that it's in the
I don't.
SEC. Well, I just
That's
mean
the
it's in
only
the
thing it has.
SEC.
That's the
That's the
only. I think
only
that's the
thing.
only thing it has going for it. Unfortunately,
But I think that it's a good job for people who are looking to get their foot in the door at the SEC. They have money, obviously. So you're going to get rich probably if you go coach there. But then you look at the rest. Oklahoma State, Big 12 is really tough, but also there's some ins there because all it takes is one really good team and you're in the playoff pretty much annually. UCLA, you said was a better job than I think we gave it credit for. Now, they had a nice little run there where they won 3 games, and then they met Kurt Signetti, and he said, "Oh, no, 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 we're not doing this shit," and they beat him like 56-6.
yeah. I mean, we'll see how they bounce back because Indiana's done that to nearly everyone this year.
I know.
And so I don't know if it's a fair assessment of where things are, but if they come out, and I don't know who they have on the schedule this week, but or if they play at all for that matter, but if UCLA, in their next outing against someone other than Ohio State or Oregon has a good strong showing, then I think that's a positive sign. Because they may, I mean, hey, they may already have their head coach. It's possible.
Indiana is coming here, by the way. They're playing Maryland at Maryland. We could have gotten free tickets to go, and Mike and I thought about going just to see the traveling Signettis in person because they're
Yeah.
21.5 point favorites in College Park, which can't be good. But before we get off this coaching
Who's
thing, Brad,
UCLA got though?
I don't know. I'll take a
Yeah.
look at it.
I'll
But
look while you're
now I want
talking.
to talk about money because the Kurt Signetti effect is not just affecting coaches getting fired, but I think it's also going to affect coaches getting paid too. Because think about this. I saw a stat that like schools are spending $168 million total for fired head coaches. Like that's how much money is being spent on buyouts for coaches that have been fired already. It's a lot of money. I really wish I could get a gig like that. I'd happily
Yeah,
get
I mean,
fired
it's gonna exceed $250,000 by the time it's all
for
said and
sure.
done.
Oh, for sure. But Kurt Signetti got those guys fired because of his winning with guys from JMU. But now he's kind of also reset the market financially because he went out and did the thing that you said every coach or every school should do if they have their guy, pay him. So Signetti gets $11.5 million. Just want everybody to take this in for a minute. $11.5 million from Indiana. Indiana. So what the hell does the LSU coach get paid?
Yeah, it's gonna be a stupid amount of money. It's like it's like quarterbacks in the NFL, where it's just like it's the next person's turn. That's what it is. You got these like 6 or 7 programs where it's like every time they hire or extend a coach, like the next guy is just gonna get extended or whatever. The next guy that gets hired is gonna get paid more. They're just gonna keep upping the ante, which is interesting in the world of like rev sharing and everything else. Because at one point I heard an argument that like the rev sharing was gonna hurt coaches' salaries because they're gonna want that money
Clearly
to go
not.
back into the roster. But no, yeah, clearly not the case.
No, clearly not. And it's like that can't that can't keep escalating because we talked about Sark putting his name out there for NFL jobs. That'd be a pay cut because the Titans were paying their coach $3 million. He's getting paid way more to be at Texas.
Yes, absolutely. So here you go. UCLA schedule update. They're off this week, and then they finish at home against Nebraska, at Ohio State, at home against Washington, and at USC. Like that is a tough slate.
Fun. That's real fun.
So we'll find out if he's got the chops. And it's funny. While the way I got to their schedule was going through and looking for a Big Ten matchup. Because I was like, okay, I'll get in the standings and find them. So the way I found them was traditional, long time Big Ten rivalry matchup that's happening this weekend: USC and Nebraska.
Of
Um,
course. Of course.
so weird, man.
That stuff so bothers me. Like
It's bizarre.
it's really bizarre and I find it I don't know if you feel the same way, but I find it so difficult to tune into a Big 10 game that has that. Like even Illinois USC, which ended up being a good game, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like a bowl
No,
game. It doesn't
yeah, like
feel like a big conference matchup. I'm just not there
oh,
yet.
USC Nebraska would have been great, like 1994, or
Yes.
something like that. That would have been tremendous. But
Trem-
and hey, it still may be a great game, but like, yeah, it's just and and when you hear that, like if you like had been in a coma for 20 years and you woke up and you're like, USC and Nebraska are playing each other, awesome. That's gonna be the game of the week. Oh, by the way,
nope.
they're both in the Big Ten. Like,
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like it's just I don't know, it's really awkward to me anyway. So this coaching thing is going to be fascinating because I think there's going to be more guys fired. Lots of guys are going to be moving. But Brad, I heard this hypothesis in today's college football world with schools finding money. It seems like that is a thing that happens now where schools, if they have an idea of what they want to do, they just find the money. And basically, does that make almost any job a good job? Because if Vanderbilt and Indiana can find resources, get players, get coaches, and be in the top 10 the way that they are now, does that almost make any job desirable at this point?
oh boy. That's a tricky question because I think it maybe at the P4 level, possibly.
Okay.
Because you likely have some decent resources at your disposal to have a fighting chance to like, catch lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
Um, but like at the group of 5, or I've heard it referred to now as the group of 6, I don't know, level, let's call it the mid-major level of college football. I think it's harder than it used to be because the whole mid-major MO back in the day was like you got guys in, you developed them, and then you'd have a junior, senior led team that was really experienced, and not just in basketball but in football, and you would come on strong and have a great season. And the coach at that point in time, if he was able to put together a couple seasons like that, would earn a promotion to a bigger job. Now those guys are just hoping and praying to catch lightning in the bottle one season to get their break, right? And you can do that at that level, but like I said, it's like you have to be. I think you have to be a much better recruiter because like you're picking from the scraps. I mean, you always have been per se, but like like if you go get especially now with the transfer portal, there's more good high school players available to recruit to the mid
Yeah.
levels, and but you're only gonna get that kid for 1 year. If he's as talented as you think he is, like, he's gonna come out,
He'll be
you're gonna
gone.
get him for 1 year and he's gone, so it's like, you better capitalize on it, and then you have to do it again the next year if you don't, and do it again the next year if you don't, and I think it's harder work for those people than it is for the Ryan Days of the world, where, I'm not saying he can get whoever he wants, but, like, he's only gotta worry most of the time about 3 or 4 other places, um, stealing a kid. So, in the recruiting battle. So I don't At the power jobs, I think it's there's more of a window for success because the resources, um, harder to do though, which is what makes what's happening at Tulane and Memphis and South Florida impressive. And
It
Tulane's been
does.
doing it for a little bit. I mean,
They
is that
have.
Pat Summerall? Is that his name, or is that the guy at North Texas? Um,
I'm not sure. Hold on. Keep
the guy at
talking.
Tulane though, he said that I saw an interview and he was asked about some of these jobs and he goes, "I've passed on Power 4 jobs to stay here," you know? Like, so I don't think he would just leave for any job. Um, I think that he's a guy because of where he's already at would probably be a decent fit at LSU, but I think LSU wants a proven head coach, a proven winner at the power level, Power 4 level, and so they won't take a guy like that. But, if I
This,
was Penn State or Virginia Tech or Oklahoma State, I'd be banging on that guy's door.
I think the Virginia Tech's gonna knock on his door for sure. I mean, the names that I've heard associated with LSU, apparently Jimbo is a name that I've heard associated with LSU, which feels like a disaster, but also it might work.
Well, I heard them talk about this today in regards to like James Franklin and Brian Kelly. Like it was Josh Pate was talking about how these guys need to follow what Dan Mullen did, which is where you basically, hey, go do TV for a year or two because every coach sounds like a genius on TV, and then you sit there and like in back channels you put out the James Franklin 2.0 plan. These are the things I would do differently now, so on and so forth, and you basically 2 years later you get to pick your job, and sort of the whatever stink maybe was on from when you got let go is kind of blown over and moved, people have moved past it, and now you're viewed at this like as this like shiny commodity, and that's where I think Jimbo is. Granted, I don't
Yeah.
think Jimbo does TV, but
No, I don't think
you know,
so.
that's that's where people view him that way. And I've also heard I told my dad this is one of those jobs, LSU, that yes, you do call Nick Saban, you do call Urban
Oh,
Meyer and make them tell you no. And which I did hear Urban Meyer talking about that job, and he mentioned the governor. He said if the governor's involved, as I've heard, he's like, that's kind of a red flag. I don't know who would want to get into a situation like that.
it's perfect for him because he's a giant red flag. So like
Right.
perfect for Urban Meyer to just walk right in there. He'd win. I'm not gonna lie to you, Urban Meyer. Well, it's been a minute since he's been on the sideline, but I think Urban Meyer would win there. Like it's obvious he's very similar. Well, he's not really similar to Brian Kelly in the sense that I think Urban Meyer is just lacks so much self awareness, and maybe Brian Kelly does too. But Urban Meyer doesn't strike me as like the kind of asshole that Brian Kelly is. He's a different kind of asshole. There's a lot of baggage that comes with Urban Meyer
Well,
that
I wonder if a guy like him can be successful where like because I think it might have been easier to succeed at the Ohio States and Floridas when like the paying people was under the table. So it's
yeah,
like I feel like you kind of had more leverage as a coach because you kind of maybe had these guys by the balls a little bit. Like, hey, like your mom's got a house, you've got a car, you better shut up or all that's going to disappear, right? Where now it's like they'll just go down the street and it's all above board and everybody's going to know about it. It's in the media and there's no this is not like a behind closed doors hush hush thing anymore. And so you can't hang that over players' heads because they could just get it elsewhere very easily. Not saying they couldn't before, but it was much harder to facilitate those things before than it is now.
very true, very true. I don't think that's going to be happening, but there's a lot of movement that's going to happen. But let's move on to the top 12 here, Brad. So the reason I say the top 12 is because we have the first college football playoff ranking that's going to be coming out in what, next week, I think?
Yeah, next Tuesday, I believe.
Right. So if it were right now, if we just took the top 12 teams from the AP poll, this would be our playoff bracket as it stands. 12 would be Notre Dame. We'd have Miami, BYU, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State. And if we just pick the top 12, that would be a fantastic playoff bracket, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, and honestly, like right now, in that case, Notre Dame would be out, and what USF or whoever the highest ranked Group of Five team would be in that spot. And I think that the unfortunate part, and I say unfortunate, but it will help Notre Dame. But like Vanderbilt and some of these SEC teams, as we've said before, they're going to beat each other up a little bit. I will be surprised if Georgia Tech escapes the season unscathed. Between the title game and having to play Georgia, and I think do they play Miami in the regular season? I'm not 100% sure. Let me pull up
They might Miami
Stanford. Let me pull
screwed
up
you over.
Stanford so I can access the ACC schedule
Well,
standings. So
listen,
crazy.
the ACC has 1, 2, 3, 4
Oh, their
teams in the
schedule
top
stinks.
25.
So
Yeah, the
Georgia
ACC
Tech has
stinks.
no, Georgia Tech's remaining schedule is at NC State, which won't be and that's not like a total pushover.
Could be a
At
trap game.
Boston College,
Sucks.
home against Pitt, and then at Georgia or home against Georgia, or they play that neutral site maybe. Um, but that's the Georgia's the only one on there. You're like, okay, that's the obvious landmine. Um,
That could be a
11
fun
and one,
game.
11 and if it's 11-1 Georgia Tech going to the ACC title game, but what happens to Virginia? Virginia's 7-1,
Virginia's fraudulent. Budge even
but
said so. I agree with Budge.
I mean they did lose to NC State, and
Correct.
their schedule finishes with Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech
So
just beat Cal too, so Cal's a total fraud.
Virginia Tech and Cal,
Yeah.
classic ACC
Oh
rivalry.
my god.
It's so
I said that the other
oh,
night because it was a Friday night too. That's the other thing is it's a Friday night game. We're sitting here and my wife was like, "What are we gonna watch?" I said, "Well, the World Series is on, which is what I wanted to watch." She said, "Aren't the Hokies playing tonight?" And I said, "Yes, they're playing that Atlantic Coast Conference rival they've always had, the Cal Golden Bears." And she's like,
yes.
"That doesn't make any sense." And I'm like, "You are not
Nope.
a college football like alignment specialist, and you think that's dumb. That means that everybody else thinks it's dumb."
Absolutely, it does. Like, if you would have said that, like, Virginia Tech's playing West Virginia, she'd be like, "Oh, yeah, she might have even been intrigued by that," you
She'd
know?
know.
But, yeah, when
Yeah.
you say Cal or Stanford, um, or SMU even, it's like, "What?"
So, Brad, when you look at this team, because you were talking to me about Notre Dame and their schedule and how a lot of people have been saying, well, they haven't played anybody because their schedule hasn't aged well. Outside of the fact that their two losses are against the number 3 and number 11 team in the country at this point. Now, Miami screwed you over by losing to Louisville, and I think that that doesn't take away the fact that Miami's a good football team. Now, if they lose a couple more games, that really sucks. But it's obvious that Texas A&M is an exceptional football team, and I feel like that the schedule thing. I got it on a reel recently too, where it's like, well, so and so Indiana's not played anybody. Who has Indiana played? And I'm like, well, they beat Oregon in Oregon. Well, that's not an SEC team. Well, that's bullshit. Like, you don't play in the SEC, so you can't play SEC schools. And there are good schools in other conferences that you need to take into consideration. But Notre Dame, I think, is fairly, their schedule is fairly looked at, and they say, okay, it hasn't aged well. But Ohio State's schedule, not really that great.
No, and, yeah, they open with Texas, but both at this point
Eh,
in time, both Texas A&M and Miami, better games than that, I would say. Then they played Grambling, Ohio, Washington, and Washington's no slouch. Minnesota, Illinois, they're ranked 17 right now, or we're ranked 17th at the time, not right now.
yes.
Wisconsin, Penn State. Now,
Eh.
Penn State, obviously not what we all thought they were going to be, and then they finish with Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and then they play Michigan. Of course, that's not a great. When you looked at that preseason, you're like, okay, Texas and Michigan, Penn State, maybe Illinois if they're not fraudulent, is the way you would have kind of looked at that schedule. And you look at Notre Dame's schedule, Texas A&M, Miami, USC if they're not fraudulent, and then I mean, I won't be shocked if by the time Notre Dame plays Navy, they squeak in and be a 24 or 25 because they're currently unbeaten right now. But I mean, I'm
Navy's
under no
26.
delusion.
Navy
Yeah, I'm
has,
under no
yeah.
delusion that Navy is a great win, but like they're gonna have a number by their name possibly when Notre Dame beats them, which helps. Um, Notre Dame doesn't have any say. They do have, people may not think this, they do have a loose affiliation with the ACC.
Yep.
Um, every sport they have other than hockey's in the Big Ten. The rest of the sports are in the ACC, and because of that, they play. I think they are contractually obligated to play 5 or 6 games. I think maybe it's 6 against the ACC every year, and they don't get to pick those games, um, as far as I know. And you know, and they don't. I mean, sometimes they get to play Clemson, or they were supposed to play Miami last year. I mean, hell, they would have that would have made their schedule really strong last year had they played Miami. But there was a weird conflict that Miami had that made it. not happen. But I just don't get it. And like the people that are like Notre Dame has to be in a conference because they think they're just skating by, by not being in a conference. I'm like, they literally have nothing. There's nothing. They have nothing to gain by being in a conference. So you're saying that you want to trade in, um, standby. You want to trade in Boise State, NC State, Boston College, Pittsburgh, Stanford, Syracuse for Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland, Iowa, like UCLA. I mean, I that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like if they were in the Big Ten, right? And I just don't understand what they think that like is happening. And like financially, Notre Dame makes more money not being in a conference. If you want to say that's unfair, fine. I'll listen to that argument. But they didn't make the system; they're just operating in it. And in terms of like a competitive advantage, like what point do conference title games have? Like the committee said last year before the conference championship games that they were not going to hold the result of those games against anyone, and they didn't. You know what I mean? They did not hold anything again outside of like the ACC where whoever won it was the automatic qualifier, whatever.
That's
But like
different.
they did not hold any results of the Big Ten championship game or the SEC championship game against those teams at all.
Nope.
And no, and I think that like when that's the case, what's the point? That
You're gonna
I don't understand.
you're gonna get me riled up because I
I just
do not like the conference championship games. But here's the thing, and I think this is an
everyone should
argument.
be independent.
Well,
Like
here's the argument in favor of what you're saying. If you look at conference realignment, I think outside of the SEC, but I think the SEC was stacked already. And the teams that they added, I think, made the conference much better top to bottom. Like if you look at the schools that were there and have been added, Texas, obviously, Oklahoma, right? These are big time programs that were big time programs in the Big 12, Big 8 before they came to the SEC. You're adding that to a huge pedigree. And also now if you're going to have schools like Vanderbilt all of a sudden be good now, there's a lot of good teams there. But I would say that conference realignment for the most part has been somewhat of a detriment for the Big 10 because I think the Big 10 was not as good top to bottom as the SEC. And the schools that they added, Oregon's obviously great. They added Washington coming off of a national championship, but Washington is still kind of trying to find their footing after Kalen DeBoer left. USC with Lincoln Riley sounded like a great idea, hasn't been much, and UCLA has been just meh, right? So
yeah,
you now have Ohio State who doesn't really have to play anybody. And last year, that was what we said about Indiana. But we're giving the benefit of the doubt because it's Ohio State. They're the defending national champions, but their schedule is
it's
just as soft as Indiana's was last year.
it's not I don't think it's an accident. I think the Big 10 like protects their big dogs, like which is
Sure.
fine. I don't have a problem with that. But again, like if that's what you're going to say the benefit of being in a conference is, like you're going to tell me if Notre Dame joined a conference outside of the SEC that they wouldn't be one of the, big
Right.
dogs at the
Right.
table that the conference would protect, like, with
Well, they would,
the
but their schedule
softer
still
schedule.
exactly
Like,
that's my point, Brad, is their schedule would look even softer. Yes, you'd
right.
gain Ohio State, a Michigan here and there, a Penn State, and or like you'd get some fun matchups, but you're not going to get the SEC. Remember we went over South Carolina's schedule and they're in the middle of it now, where there was like a
Crazy,
murder,
crazy.
yes, a murderer's row of a schedule. And it doesn't get any easier. Whereas in the Big Ten, when you read off Ohio State's schedule, it's like, that doesn't really. I mean, I feel like Virginia Tech could go 6-6 playing a lot of those teams, or they should be able to go 6-6 playing those teams. That sounded very similar to an ACC schedule where you're not like, Rutgers, who gives a shit? And so
Yeah.
I feel like
And
the
then you have
conference, everybody,
Wisconsin who plays every ranked team in the Big Ten is on their schedule. You know what I mean? Like they just
that
got
sucks.
and they played Alabama out of
Poor
conference.
Luke,
Like,
poor Luke Fickle. But boy, talk about not being able to catch a break. I agree with you though. I don't think that there's any rush for Notre Dame financially to get in bed with a conference. Now, I think that if alignment continues on this fast forward path, they may be almost forced to make a decision. But I don't think that they need to jump the gun and just do it. I think that what needs to happen for them is they need to wait for the offers to come in. Because look, there will be offers from every conference for Notre Dame to join them, and they'll join the school, or excuse me, they'll join the conference that makes the most sense football and financially, right? And that may end up being the Big Ten because geographically it works out for them in terms of resources for travel and lodging and all that. But also, they could have technically an easier path to the playoff every year in the Big Ten. They could not do that in the
Right.
SEC. No
Well,
way.
my fear is that if they were forced to join a conference tomorrow,
They
they
would
would
join the
join the
ACC.
ACC because of the
Ugh.
affiliation that already exists. And I don't like that. I don't want them to join the ACC at all. Now, if you were to
No,
tell me they were going to join the Big Ten, like just because there's so many good geographical rival, especially with Indiana being good right now, Michigan, there's so many good rivalries. USC is already in the Big Ten. That's a longstanding rivalry, and so that would be I would take that. But like, it, answer me this question: do you think that if Notre Dame simply joining the Big Ten, assuming that we all believe there's a gap between the SEC and the Big Ten, not a huge one, but a gap, at least in the top half, let's say.
oh, I think the gap is
Do you
pretty
think?
large. That
Do
could be a
you
hot
think
take, though.
does Notre Dame joining the Big Ten close that gap that much?
I don't really think so because, again, there's so many teams that, again, you're going to have these teams like Notre Dame is still going to be hit with the schedule thing because it's Notre Dame.
I agree with you, and my point is that, like, that's why there's no benefit to Notre Dame joining the Big Ten because, like, it the Big Ten's not so strong that, like, all of a sudden now Notre Dame's gonna run the gauntlet, you know what I
No,
mean? Like, it's just not the case, like, if it was that strong, Notre Da the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC wouldn't be that big, and Notre Dame joining the Big Ten would close that gap, you know what I
yes.
mean? And that's just
Well,
not the
in
case
the
because
ACC, they be the top dogs.
The bottom half of the Big Ten is so shitty, like,
It
I
is
mean, it's
Northwestern,
bad.
Rutgers.
Northwestern's actually decent this year, but, like, yeah, Rutgers,
Well,
UCLA,
traditionally,
Wisconsin's
Northwestern is
bad.
whatever. Yes,
Yeah,
I get you. I'm with you on this. And again, I think they're going to have to choose at some point, but I think that they hold all the leverage right now. Not to mention the fact that they hold leverage on a football perspective because, as we pointed out, if Notre Dame finishes 10-2, they're going to be in the discussion for the playoff, and that's fair or unfair because they're Notre Dame and they're a brand and they mean something and it brings dollars to the table. And that's everybody freaking remember the dollars coming to the table is what matters.
yeah, and sitting here today, I do think it's gonna be interesting. Like, I feel confident in 10-2 will be enough, but, like, I feel like I'm feeling slightly less certain than I was maybe a couple weeks ago because, like, if Texas Tech wins out, and they'll be what, 11-1, um, I believe. And now I gotta go verify who their one loss is to,
That was to
um,
Arizona State.
quickly. Yes, correct.
Budge was at the game.
And so but then what you have there in the Big 12 currently, you have an undefeated BYU, a one-loss Cincinnati, a one-loss Texas Tech, and a one-loss Houston. Is there a world where you end up with, let's say BYU gets to the Big 12 title game, loses to one of those 3 teams with one loss, and now you have 2, um, I guess they'd be what, 12-1 teams, from the Big 12. What happens there? And the same thing could happen in the ACC, potentially. Like if Georgia Tech gets there and then Miami gets there and beats them, like you're looking at the same things. Like do you leave out a 12-1 Georgia Tech in favor of a 10-2 Notre Dame? Um, Same in the Big 12. Do you leave out 12-1 BYU or Texas Tech or whatever in favor of 10-2 Notre Dame? I think that would make things
It
interesting.
would. It would. But again, I think it's going to come down to how is Notre Dame playing at the time. If they're blowing everybody out in 10-2, that is probably something the committee is going to look at. But the Big 12, I just find it difficult that the committee is going to put two Big 12 schools in unless you get a situation where, like you said, BYU is like your worst nightmare is BYU makes it to the Big 12 championship game undefeated and loses to a one-loss team. Like that's like the
Yeah.
worst nightmare. But I think in the ACC, if if Miami is the team that you're up against, that head-to-head is going to really hurt. But if Miami loses another game from here on out, that hurts your loss. But like if they win out from here on out and there's a one loss Miami team like that wins an ACC championship, I don't think Notre Dame is gonna have to worry about a two-loss ACC team. Like I
I'm
don't
saying
know.
a one loss. Like I'm saying, like if
Oh,
Georgia
I
Tech
know.
runs the table, beats Georgia,
Yeah.
and then loses to Miami in the ACC title game, and now they're 12-1, and
Yes.
Miami's going to get in as the automatic qualifier 12-1.
I just don't
Like
know. I don't know. I
the
still
and
think that Notre
the
Dame.
win late over Georgia, like
Well, you know
is
what's
going to
really
make it.
hurting
I mean,
you? So let's look at the slate for this week because I think what's really hurting you is these teams like Vanderbilt sticking around because you're like, what the hell? They're in the top 10. Like, what are we doing
but
here?
the SEC is a war of attrition. They're gonna eat their own, and they're gonna be 2 to 3 teams that will be um at the top. Maybe honestly, I mean, shit, man, it may be 4. Honestly, I mean, they could get 4 teams in. I mean, that's probably likely that they get 4 teams in. Which 4, who knows? But like, I think you'd pretty well cap it at 4. The Big Ten, if you give them 4, that's 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that leaves. So if you give 4, 4, one to the Big 12, one to the ACC, you got your group of 5 representative, and that leaves your spot for a Notre Dame or a second bid from the Big 12 or ACC.
Well, let's take a look at the slate for this week. You talked about the SEC. So obviously, Penn State plays Ohio State. Ohio State is a 20.5 point favorite at home. That should be a wash. Vanderbilt plays Texas on the road, and they're a 2.5 point dog on the road. And that's a game where I think you feel like a Vanderbilt could lose that kind of a game in the SEC because it's just one game after another. But there's something about this Vanderbilt team, and I'm rooting hard for them because I love what's going on down there. But that's a tough game. Miami plays SMU on the road. They're a big fit. Well, they're 12.5 point favorites, but like that's not an easy game. You don't want to overlook that. And then let's see. Indiana plays
2 of the
Maryland.
most scandalous programs in college football history,
Yeah,
Miami and SMU,
now you're like, it doesn't really mean anything.
right?
Indiana plays Maryland. Georgia plays Florida. That could be fascinating, but I think Georgia should win that football game. Notre Dame plays Boston College. Who gives a shit? That should be a wash.
Never
Texas Tech.
underestimate the power of an interim head coach at Florida.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing that worries me about that game is you get kind of juiced when you fire your head coach, which is why whoever is
Fuck
playing
Billy
LSU this
Napier,
week.
let's go.
Yes, that's exactly right. Texas Tech is in Manhattan, not that Manhattan, but Kansas State. Hey, you never know. That's the thing
The
about the
little
Big
apple.
12. Yeah, the Big 12 is so tough because anybody could lose a game like that. Virginia
Yes.
and Cal, I feel like Cal's going to win that game just because it's a cross country road trip. It's a 3:45 game, which is like a noon game for UVA. That sucks. And then poor South Carolina, they're going to get to play Ole Miss. I'm sure that'll be fun. After blowing the game to Alabama this past week, that
But you
sucks.
know what though? That's the thing that's like it's been Lane Kiffin's kind of thing is he kind of finds a way to lose a game like this,
Well, I'm not going to
right?
lie, man. 12.5 point spread is small
Yeah.
in my
Like
mind.
if I mean, and like what at this point, what's Shane Beamer have to lose? I mean,
His
they're either
job.
going to keep him or they're not. Well, I mean, that decision's probably already been made one way or another. Like this game, I don't think is going to sway the. I mean, I guess if he wins, it could potentially save him, maybe if they think he's out. But like, um, no, but Lane Kiffin's always kind of found a way to drop a game like this.
Here's the quote, and I think you've heard this when Billy Napier got fired, and I think it is so applicable now in college football that I think it was the Florida AD said it might have been when they got rid of Ron Zook. I can't remember all of that, but he said that which will be done eventually must be done immediately. And I feel like that's where we are in college football. Like if you've said they made the decision on Shane Beamer, I feel like at this point that means he's not going to be here at the end of the season. But then if that's the case, why wouldn't you just get rid of him? Like there's arguments to be made both ways, but I had somebody in
It's a
TikTok tell
good
me
point.
Shane Beamer ain't leaving South Carolina. And I'm like, if they ask him to, he is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's a good way to operate, man. Like, especially these days, like,
Oh, in today's
yeah,
college football, for sure. Like, if it's not
when you know,
fun,
you know.
get rid of him. Because what's the point? And I think that Virginia Tech kind of started this only because the transfer portal window opens for 30 days. You kind of find out what you got, and then you move along. Plus, you get this interim coach in, and you kind of get to see if he can get what he can get out of these players. Like 3-5 isn't great for the Hokies, but getting a couple of wins when they didn't look that good with Brent Pry there, okay, right? You kind of decide, okay, there is life, there's embers left of this. But you talked about the SEC eating itself alive. Oklahoma at Tennessee, that's pretty much an eliminator for either of these teams, I feel like,
Yep.
because, and I feel like Tennessee's going to beat them because Oklahoma, John Mateer doesn't look right to me. And I feel like Oklahoma is sort of in this weird place. And I feel like Brent Venables kind of felt like, all right, he's kind of making that ascension, and it's going to be up and down for him. Like he could be a coach we're talking about next year because he's always been
Oh, yeah.
kind of all over the place.
Weird
Like a
guy.
team you did, by the way, team you didn't mention, 7-1 Cincinnati from the Big 12.
I thought mentioned him when I went through the standings, maybe not,
Maybe
but
you
like,
did.
but that's one. Yeah, they're flying under the radar, man. It kind of feels like, which really BYU kind of did that last year until late. I remember there was that big game because we thought Colorado was going to find a way to sneak in, and I think BYU beat them. Um, and then it was like, oh shit, what about BYU? And then Cincinnati's kind of that team this year where we're recognizing, and same with the SMU and the ACC. Like nobody was talking about them at all. Next thing you know, they're in the playoffs. So um, definitely a lot of weird possibilities that are out there. And like November is the most. I mean, it's like October we start to like the dust settles, we see who's who, but like November, man, we're gonna get fireworks here in the college football season.
Yeah, especially next weekend when the Citadel has to play Ole Miss. That's going to be fireworks for sure.
That's a lot of weird connections there probably between the Citadel and Ole Miss.
I would say so. Now, my father-in-law is a season ticket holder for Citadel football, and the Citadel's not very good. But I was just jumping ahead because you're talking about like these teams having to play each other. Like Missouri has to host Texas A&M not this week, but 2 weeks from now. And if Vanderbilt loses this game, then they have Auburn coming in. Hugh Freeze is going to be coaching for his job. LSU and Alabama, like I'd be worried if I was Alabama because again, the interim head coach thing, you get Brian Kelly's old
Yeah.
crew, like man, that guy's gone. And
Nothing to
you're right.
lose.
I think that the lesson here, it's way too early still. I know that it's November 1st in 3 days, but it's still too early to really know. And I think that in college football, you really don't know until the conference championship games are over. Like, and then you know where the dust settles because there's so many permutations for all of these things to happen. But every week that goes by, we kind of see who's not going to be in it. But there's still all this glimmer of hope at the bottom underneath the 12, 13, 14, 15. And that's why I think Notre Dame is in an interesting position because right now they're sitting at 12. If they keep winning and some of these teams are losing in front of them, they're going to have to leave out a top 10 to win Notre Dame. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean that's what Notre Dame has to hope for is that other teams keep losing and it pumps them up the rankings a little bit. But I mean, you do not want to be Notre Dame sitting at like 10 or 11 on selection. I don't even know what day they do it, if it is a Sunday, selection day, we'll call it. Yeah, I wouldn't feel too comfortable if that's where Notre Dame sits at that point in time because a lot of weird stuff can happen. But if they get themselves up into that like 8, 9 range, I'll feel pretty comfortable as long as they're still winning games. I mean, I've seen projections of them. Gosh, what was the one I saw? I think they might have been like 11 and on the road at at Georgia as a 7 seed, and then to if they won, they would go play Indiana. Um, that's funny. They play 2 of the same teams they played on their path last year, just kind of in a reverse order. But I mean, interesting. That's what I love about the 12 team playoff. And again, of course, like that's what'll happen is we'll get these rematches of last year. But to see like Notre Dame play Ole Miss or like Tennessee or Texas Tech, just somebody different, Alabama even. Um, I'm here for it.
There's a lot of dangerous teams, in my opinion, that could make a deep run. Like I do think Ole Miss is capable of making a deep run if they don't lose some stupid game between now and then because they score a lot of points. They have the ability to really kind of boat race you. And I think that would be a really good time. If Vanderbilt can keep it together, that's a plucky team. It's like the David Eckstein of college football teams right now, where it's like you just can't get them out. They just constantly are always in the game, and it's so frustrating. And I do feel like Indiana, while they haven't played an SEC school, that's a tough team. And Mendoza is playing amazing. Right now, he's possibly projected as the number one or number two quarterback taken in the draft. I don't know how great that is for your NFL team, but he is playing exceptional, and that team is bullying teams. And Kurt Signetti's, I just love the way he coaches. I know you kind of got tired of the shtick last year, but it's like it's so up your alley the way that he coaches. Like he just has that chip on his shoulder, and the team seems to kind of embody that.
Yeah, I mean, he's I don't know what you'd call it or, like, how you would, describe it. It's just very, it's not like outward arrogance. It's almost like indifference. Like, it's just very strange, like, the way that he, and, like, he's very calculated, like, in the way that he was just, like, blowing, you know, rays of sunshine up Dan Lanning's rear end before the Oregon game, just refusing to give them any shred of, bulletin
And
board
they
material,
and then they win
and yeah,
decisively.
uh I mean, I mean, when you hear what the guy says in the media, I can't imagine what he's like, behind closed doors, in a pregame speech and how he goes about things or whatever. But like the dude gets that team to play hard, and I mean, truthfully, there are some things about him, and I know that he coached with them. There's a lot of things about him that remind me of Nick Saban in a lot of ways, like
Yes,
just his personality, his demeanor, the way he goes about his business. A lot of parallels there.
there is. And I mean, he's winning. Like I told Mike today, he's lost 2 games since he got to Indiana. Notre Dame, who was in the national championship game, and Ohio State, who won the national championship. Other than that,
Yeah.
he's done a pretty damn good job at a program that has been nothing my entire life. Like nothing. And that had Michael Penix Jr., by the way. And they still were nothing, even with Michael Penix Jr., who ended up going to Washington. I think the lesson here, Brad,
Michael
is
Penix
that
Jr. and Kalen DeBoer
that's
as the
correct.
OC.
That's correct. There's been there's been a lot that's happened this season, and I've really enjoyed it. I didn't get to watch as much this weekend. We were a little bit busy, but it is nice to kind of catch up after the fact. I do appreciate all the people that put condensed games up on YouTube, by the way. Terrific, because I can kind of see what's going on. Like I watched the Virginia Tech Cal game that way and found out that
That's
they came
awesome.
back and won in over. Yeah, it was like 25 minutes. It was great. Nobody was up yet. I just watched the whole thing and it was wonderful. I kind of got a feel for the game. But Brad, we've been doing this for a little bit now. I feel like we covered a lot of good ground tonight. Coaching has been this through line for us all season long, but it's been a fascinating year for that. Like I don't really remember coaches getting fired at such a high volume in the middle of the season. And like I said, we're not even to Thanksgiving yet, and this shit's happening. But I do want to ask you one question. I know that this will never happen, but if you were a program that had a college or a coach opening, how amazing would it be, depending on the school, would it be to have Dan Campbell as your head coach at a college level?
Man. Um, that'd be interesting, man. I I
Do you think
I
he could
don't
do it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's not like a resounding yes from me because I didn't say it. And we know well about my affinity for Man Campbell here. But I'm just not sure if it'd work. And that's weird because you're coaching the same like top tier guys when they come to the league. Um, I
Okay,
don't know, man. I
here's
really
my
don't.
question.
That's a good question.
What would make him more capable of coaching professionals than recruiting and motivating young college kids? You know what I mean?
True, good point. I don't know. I don't know if it's if the shtick, and I hate to call it that because I don't think it's a shtick. I just think it's who he is.
It definitely is not a shtick. It's who
Um,
he is. He's like
I
that when
don't
he's
know if
carving the turkey on
it that
Thanksgiving for
I
sure.
don't know if that seems like if it's cringy to the younger generation in some
Maybe
way, possibly. I
that's
mean, I
possible.
love the guy, man. Like I don't um I just have this weird, the old reliable uh gut feeling that it wouldn't be a certainty,
All right.
that he'd be successful.
I think it'd be a hell of a lot of fun. Certainly a lot more fun than having old
It'd be
Brian Kelly.
entertaining.
Oh, entertaining for sure. Which also the other name, speaking of entertaining, that I've heard with the LSU job is Gruden. Now that would be
That'd be
not even sure.
wild.
That would be wild. I don't think that'd
That'd
be a
be
good
wild,
fit.
man.
I think he's going to find himself on a sideline at some point in college football. And I do think that would be a lot of fun and entertaining for any school that gets him. But big action coming up this weekend, and it's going to be like that between now and basically conference championship weekend. So every weekend is going to have higher and higher stakes. And yeah, there's NFL action, but right now the NFL is about halfway through their season. The Patriots are the best team in the NFL. That's all you really need to know about that. And anyway, there's a lot. But my point being in saying that facetiously is like we're going to be here. We're going to be covering football, and the holidays are coming, and I can't wait for that. Like we're ready to go. Like Halloween's on Friday. I might be putting my tree up on Saturday. That shit could be happening because you know what? I need a little bit of rays of sunshine in my life right now. But Brad, do you have anything before we get the hell out of here? Get you guys to
Uh,
bed.
I couldn't agree more, man. Like I'm not a big Halloween guy. I love the fall. Just I mean, I'm not
It's
not
okay.
into Halloween, man. Like
It's okay.
kids like it because of candy, but
Me
I'm
too.
ready to move on, get into the holiday season.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, Christmas tree, Christmas lights, the whole 9 yards. When we were talking about John Gruden, I was thinking about how Gruden to Virginia Tech, Inner Sandman, man, like it's awesome. Like, yeah, I
Oh,
just
he
imagine him like talking
pumped.
about it. He'd be so
Pumped.
into it. I love what we do here, though, man. We don't get buried in like the stats and like yeah, we pull out like interesting stats, but we don't get buried in like the analytics and everything else. I like that we talk about like human things, like coaches and cultures and personalities and stuff like that, because I think that stuff matters, and it's kind of something that gets like um, overlooked by a lot of other outlets out there, where they want to talk about rushing yards and so on and so forth. And
There's plenty of
um,
people that do that. And you
yeah,
and I also are willing to graciously send people to those areas. Like, I don't care if you've never heard of our friend CF Budge and you find him and you're like, man, this guy knows everything about college football. Please go follow him, go support
he's
him
the
because you're
best.
going to, yeah, to me, he is doing it in a way that is so much better than so many professionals because it's who he is. It's what he
It's very
likes.
genuine. It's short form. It's like
Yes.
it's to the point, I think, for what the modern sports content consumer would want out of somebody. And I hope that you find us enjoyable as well, whoever you may be, the two people watching, my father and some other person. Thank you very much.
Good Kev.
No, hey, as always, been a blast. Had fun doing it. Looking forward to seeing what kind of crazy stuff happens over the next week or so. This is my first Saturday in a few weeks. I'll be able to be home all day and watch college football. So I'm looking forward to that. And I mean, I might have the windows open. It's November 1st, like
Yes.
fall
Yes.
breeze. I can't wait.
Yes.
Maybe let's drag the TV out in the backyard, man. Just hang out there.
While you're putting up Christmas lights,
Hoodie
I will
on.
be trying to get out of a kid's birthday party, so we'll stay
Oh,
tuned
these
on that
people
next
never
week.
figure it out.
No, it's been every weekend. Every weekend,
Oh,
man. Just one after the other.
you
There's
just need to
something else
tell
going
you
on.
just need to tell James, like, you're not allowed to be friends with that kid anymore.
Oh, that's right.
Their parents obviously don't respect, uh
James's T-ball team is their season is mercilessly ending as the T-ball season is wrapping up with one final game out there on the dusty field while James picks his nose and plays in the dirt and generally doesn't follow any baseball etiquette whatsoever. So that'll be my Saturday. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted as to whether I can get out of that birthday party because it is an hour after the start of the T-ball game. So, yeah, I might be able to. Yeah,
a
I
little wiggle room there.
might be might be cutting it a little bit close.
Extra innings. We might have extra innings at the
And we ain't
T-ball
having
game.
that 18 inning game like we had the other night where Shohei Otani got intentionally walked 4 times in extra innings because they're like, nope, you're not
Cowards.
beating us. Yeah, cowards. Canada, by the way, uh, almost, let's see, I got to check the score, but they were very close on winning this game tonight, which means it'd be up 3 games to 2 over the Dodgers. So
Love how
we'll
you just
keep
called
that.
them Canada. I think it's great.
It is. I mean,
Yes.
is there any
Canada
other?
versus the world.
It basically is because I got told that how could you root for a Canadian team? We're American, which sure,
Hey, how
that's
many
fine.
American guys play for the Dodgers?
Not yeah,
They're
right. Oh,
you know
don't
what I
even get me
mean? Like,
started. Don't even get me started because this guy came into my comment section and was like, "This is like when Conor McGregor faced Floyd Mayweather, and how could you not root for Floyd Mayweather outside of?" He said pure racism against Conor McGregor, and I was like, "What?"
jeez. Like
And
the
it's like
Dodgers' three best players are Japanese.
we're American, and I'm like, no, like right, like I was listening to a podcast recently that over the summer they did a best North American players of the 21st century, and realized after they unveiled the list that they put Otani on the list, and they're like, oh. He shouldn't
Oh,
have been on the
whoopsie.
list because he's not North American, but he's just so good. We had to put him on the list because that's what we do here. But yes, I agree with you, Brad. Big weekend. We'll be back next week, and I always love talking to you. For everybody that's in the comment section, we appreciate every bit of your time. To Brad's dad, go get some sleep. It's late for you, my man. You got Bradley basketball to talk about tomorrow as we resurrect from the grave. Braves talk for the start of the Bradley season. From me and from Brad, hope this finds everybody well and safe. And we'll see you next time, folks. This is Football Frenzy.
Some